Absolutely. Yeah. On the football side, it's just there's no point in beating that dead horse. But the the only thing about that is, and I guess I'm putting horse the cart before the horse. There's going to be some serious discussions at the end of this season. I'm not going to get into all that now because you've got 5 games left, so there's no point to that. But they've got to find some way to be competitive going forth, at the very least, to try to salvage something out of this, I would imagine.
We have quickly reached the point in this season where the primary concern kind of shifts to maintaining a locker room, the cohesion there, keeping your recruits together and locked up, and just really not letting this thing slide into the abyss. And everybody knew. I mean, I don't think we necessarily fully comprehended how good Michigan State would be when we first saw them on the schedule.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, you knew it was going to be tough. I mean, Cincinnati, you probably saw that coming last year.
I should have said when they scheduled it. They didn't know that.
Right. I mean, everybody knew the first half of this season was going to be a really, really tough pull. It was going to be uphill for Indiana. What you see now is a team that really, really, really has struggled to compete against the top level competition it's faced, at least at the time. You look at Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State. Indiana they didn't compete. They rarely were even in the same ballpark as their opponent. And it makes the Cincinnati game, it makes the Michigan State game that much more frustrating, knowing this is a team that's capable of competing against top 10 teams, but just thoroughly outclassed in every way, shape, or form against Ohio State. It's disappointing because that was a performance in front of a full house, kind of the antithesis of what we saw against Cincinnati, where they were at least in it in the fourth. Absent that first drive, this was a team that looked like they were never even remotely close to being able to compete against the Buckeyes. And you saw the crowd thin out pretty good. And granted, it was a miserable evening for football, but honestly, it was a miserable football performance. And now you just they can keep it together and not lose what they got, because momentum has certainly left the station. And now you're just hoping that the fans and players don't follow suit.
That's the biggest thing I think that they're losing, Kevin and Chronic, is all of that great goodwill built up, all of that belief built up. You had people believing in that program because it can be there, because that was real. That happened, but just sustaining that. And that is the biggest problem, because capturing that, what they captured last year, it was captured organically. You could not have created it, and it was perfect. You usually don't get a lot of second chances on that.
That was my lead, in my game story, which I started writing at halftime, was the feel good 2020 season feels longer and longer ago, just in the span of these 7 games. And I think, like you said, Jim, it's going to be tough, in terms of winning back. But, I look back to 2 years ago when Ohio State last came here, and I believe the score was 51-10. And Indiana, they still won 8 games in the bowl. They regrouped. I think every game is its own entity. And if you want to be optimistic, even as bad as the quarterback situation is, Maryland is a team that, is suspect as far as a run defense. If you can run the football a little bit, you can play good defense.
But Indiana hasn't been able to do that.
But Indiana hasn't been able to do that because they faced some of the top run defenses in the Big Ten in Iowa.
They haven't done it against anybody, though. They can run the ball well against Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky and Idaho. Yeah, but I'm saying that Maryland is on par defensively with those two teams in terms of their defense. So you might be able to run the football. You might be able to run the football well against this team. That's my point. Is that you might be able to establish something running the football, and if you can do that, you might have a shot.
Chronic, yeah, but losing that magic, because that was a pretty fun, even from an unbiased perspective. It was fun watching that. it was fun seeing those people, all the kids and players and the coaches enjoying and having fun and being a part of turning around something that was almost impossible to do. And man, to see it backslide so much and to kind of have an indication of why is a little mind-boggling as well.
Well, I think what's really challenging for this team is people who have followed it closely have seen the buildup to get here. Going back to Kevin Wilson forward, you have seen a team that has made measurable strides in becoming more competitive in the Big Ten and the Big Ten East and the national football landscape. And then it all kind of culminates last year. Indiana is in the discussion for a New Year's Six bowl. Indiana is being prominently featured in national promotions for the bowl season, and it was truly euphoric, especially for people who have followed this program for a long time. And there were certainly skeptics that said, well, this is kind of a fluke, you're only doing this in front of empty stadiums and yada yada. And for the casual fan, the casual observer, for some of the national media, particularly that section that has historically loved to view IU football as the whipping boys of the Big Ten, it just gives credence to that whole fluke notion, and it really evaporated a lot of the national credibility, even the regional credibility, the conference credibility that Indiana had worked so tirelessly to establish. And if circling back, if you remember in our preseason discussions this year, exactly like our preseason discussions last year, how far is Indiana football going to go this year? Well, it probably depends on how healthy Michael Penix is able to stay, how effective he's able. We saw this one coming. Everyone knew that this was a team that, in order to achieve their potential or get close to it, a lot of things had to go right. And unfortunately, this season, virtually everything that could go wrong has so far, particularly on the offensive side of the ball from a production standpoint. So, it's not like the bottom has completely fallen out. It's just those key things that were essential to Indiana's success. Not only have they not happened, they've been thwarted by injury, by transfer, by a whole host of things. I certainly didn't expect the offensive line to have regressed this far, this fast, absent some of those kind of catastrophic issues. But it's only compounded everything else that's on the plate for them. Now, all that being said, I don't think this is a completely lost season. Obviously they're still mathematically in contention for a bowl game. It's going to take quite the turnaround here in really short order if that's going to materialize for Indiana. But as you mentioned, as Kevin mentioned, the Maryland game gives them a great opportunity to kind of get this taste out of their mouth, wipe the slate. I don't know that they're going to wipe the slate clean as badly as they've been whooped here. And let's not discount how significant of an improvement we need to see in a matter of a week. You take away the opening drive against the Buckeyes, 10 subsequent drives, Indiana was able to rack up a total of 53 combined yards on offense. I mean, just thoroughly inept. And yes, that's one of the best defenses in the nation, one of the best defenses in the conference. Maryland's nowhere near that level, but let's be honest, that's still a Big Ten team that we're going to have to figure out some way to move the ball forward, because quite honestly, they spent way too many drives with the ball in reverse last weekend. And we're going to learn a whole lot about this staff and about these players and exactly what they're working with right now, because I don't want to say it's going to take a miracle, but it's in the neighborhood of a miracle in order to expect a win on the road here with what Indiana is working with.
I don't know if it's in the neighborhood. I think it's next door. Yeah, it's going to be. But my only issues with it, or the situation is, well, and we got to remember, they lost 2 running backs to the transfer portal during the season. What a blow that has been. And then, but the quarterbacks, Jack Tuttle should be prepared. He was the top 11 quarterback. This is his 3rd year in school, I think. So he's not really a backup. It was kind of when Peyton Ramsey was and Michael Penix were battling out. They both were at a high level, but that high level is kind of disappeared from the quarterback position, seems.
And I actually thought that opening drive was probably one of the better performances.
Best drive of the season, I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it was. It really,
Yes.
really was. When you consider what they were running up against, the conditions they were playing in, I was absolutely over the moon after that outcome until you see Jack limping off the field.
Yeah.
And, that's where, you talk about a 180 to go from this is literally eye-poppingly effective offense to, your QB number 2 right now, by the coach's own admission, is nowhere near ready to throw the football. They did not have packages available where they thought he could be remotely effective, and they've got to bench him for a walk-on. This wasn't something that was totally unexpected. It's not like you just burned through your depth chart all in one game. You knew where you stood going into this one. You knew what type of defense you were going up against. Obviously, it's not optimal for a number of reasons, but to turn around after a drive and have to insert a walk-on, especially considering all the praise we'd heard up until this point about how good we looked at that depth, maybe not immediately, but for the short, for the near future. And then to come out and basically acknowledge we were nowhere ready in the preparation in order for him to even remain in the game for consecutive drives. You got to take a step back here and go, I understand there's a whole lot of things that went wrong that got us to this point, but there's a whole lot of negligence seemingly behind some of the preparation that left Indiana just with their pants down on national television in prime time against the cream of the crop in the conference. And, they did not look like they belonged on the same field as the Buckeyes for the remaining drive for the rest of the game, quite honestly.
Yeah. And it's a shame because, like you said, they work so hard, and there's so many of those. We know the entire team has worked hard to get it up to where that level that they reached, but to watch that slide away has got to be tough. So hopefully they can recapture that.